Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They killed a single child. So humanity erased their entire race. They were called the Zari, a tall, gray-skinned race with sleek, angular features and no concept of emotion, cold, efficient. Their culture was built on logic and hierarchy, not compassion. So when a young human child wandered onto one of their border colonies, the response wasn't negotiation or understanding, they dissected her. Her name was Amara Lane, age 8, with brown curls, tiny dimples, and a voice that could melt the hardest heart. She'd gotten separated from her parents during a diplomatic visit on a neutral moon station. One moment, she was looking at glowing jellyfish in the alien tanks, and the next, she was gone. The station's cameras caught her being lured into a corridor by a Zarkari scientist named Kulth, but the Zari refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. "We are within our scientific rights," their ambassador had said. "She entered our territory, we considered her a specimen." That word, specimen, they tried to play off with clinical detachment, claiming they hadn't realized her intelligence level, they hadn't understood that a child, a human child, was sacred to Earth. When Earth received the images of what had been done to her, there was a moment of global silence, not grief, not confusion, but rage. The Zari didn't understand it at first. They had waged war with hundreds of species, dominated planets, broken civilizations under their cold, strategic grip, but this was different. This wasn't about politics or conquest, this was personal. The child had been the daughter of Juno Lane, a decorated Earth diplomat, and her husband, Commander Riker Lane, a man known for his calm. But after that day, Riker never smiled again. The Earth Council voted unanimously, no debates, no diplomacy. The resolution was titled Operation God's Fury. Within 6 days, Earth's armada had mobilized, not the ceremonial fleets, not the peacekeepers, but the Black Wave, humanity's deep-core military units designed not for defense but eradication. At first, the Zari laughed, primitive, emotional creatures. They scoffed, avenging a single offspring. How inefficient. Then Earth unleashed Hydra 1-3, a swarm AI weapon that hijacked the Zari's planetary defense grids, turning them against their own people. Zari cities didn't fall, they vanished. Their ships didn't fight, they exploded from the inside, their engines infected with nanovirus codes buried inside what had seemed like peaceful trade satellites. And still, humanity didn't send envoys, no ceasefire calls, just a single message broadcast on every known galactic frequency: "You hurt one of ours, there will be no forgiveness." By the time the Zari understood this wasn't war, it was a cleansing, it was far too late. Their home world, Zero Prime, tried to plead for mercy. They offered reparations, technology, entire colonies. But Earth didn't want wealth. Earth wanted Amara back, and since that was impossible, they wanted every single Zari soul to feel that same emptiness. It wasn't diplomacy that carried Earth's name across the galaxy anymore, it was the story of the child, the one who smiled too brightly, laughed too loud, wandered too far, and what happened when her people decided that wasn't acceptable. The Zari called it a cultural misstep, an error in judgment, something to be buried under political language and forgotten beneath bureaucratic layers. But humans remembered, especially those who carried a badge or a rifle, who wore the insignia of Earth's wrath on their chest like a burning oath. Commander Riker Lane didn't speak to anyone during the 10-day journey aboard the ISS Revenant, the flagship of the Black Wave fleet. It was shaped like a dagger, sleek, fast, and unforgiving. In its belly were weapons so advanced they were classified as borderline war crimes by most galactic coalitions. Humanity had never used them until now. Riker sat in silence in his quarters, staring at a small, hollow projection of his daughter Amara, holding her favorite stuffed otter and waving at the camera with eyes that still sparkled even in death. The projection looped every 17 seconds, he hadn't turned it off once. There was a knock at his door. "Come in," he said. Captain Soraya Vega, his second in command, stepped in, her usually steady gaze flickered with unease. We've received confirmation Zari refugee transports are fleeing the Tarsus belt. They know we're coming. Riker didn't look at her. Let them run, they'll only die tired. Soraya hesitated. There are children aboard some of those ships. Riker's jaw tightened. Then they should have taught their parents not to carve up mine. The silence after that was heavier than steel. Soraya didn't argue, not because she agreed, but because this mission wasn't built on rules, it was built on grief. The Revenant exited hyperspace with a thunderous ripple of spacetime over the shattered remains of Outpost Varel 7. Once a mining colony co-managed by Earth and the Zari, now it was a drifting graveyard, the result of a retaliatory bombing by rogue Zari units after Earth's first strike. They'd killed 163 humans, many of them engineers, most unarmed. But they hadn't found Riker's rage, that was still coming. The black wave didn't announce its presence, it didn't need to. Ships began disappearing from sensors across Zari space, one by one, not in combat, not in glorious battles, just gone. Earth had unlocked a technology called Echo Code, a frequency-based algorithm that shattered biological nervous systems from across solar systems. They didn't destroy the ships, they killed everyone inside instantly, clean, clinical, poetic. Back on Earth, people watched in silence, no parades, no celebrations. They mourned, but they didn't stop the fleet, because the world had seen Amara's body, her tiny chest opened, her organs tagged with cold alien numbers, her eyes left wide staring at nothing. On day 12, the Revenant received a transmission from a Zari High Chancellor, his skin paler than the usual steel gray, his voice trembling with something rare among his kind, fear. "We admit fault," he said. "We offer reparations, we are willing to surrender." Riker responded with a single sentence, "You don't get to surrender," and with that, the Revenant launched the Prometheus Protocol, a sequence that summoned a weapon not yet seen in the galaxy, built in silence on Earth's dark side of the moon, a weapon that didn't just kill, it erased the target, Zero Prime. There was no countdown, no warning, just a sudden, blinding white light in the distance. Where once the Zari home world had sat proud with its silver-blue rings gleaming in orbit, now it was nothing but ashes and memory. There were no survivors. Riker stood on the observation deck, watching as the last fragments of Zari culture crumbled into cosmic dust. Beside him, Soraya said nothing. "What now?" she finally asked. Riker didn't answer right away. He looked at the photo of his daughter on the screen, then out at the stars. "Now," he said, voice hollow, "they remember her name." In the far reaches of the Galactic Accord, the annihilation of Zero Prime hit like a meteor. Entire chambers of politicians and alien dignitaries stood in stunned silence as images flickered across the hollow screens, before and after shots of the Zari home world. One frame showed a planet bustling with life, technology, culture, the next was an empty void surrounded by drifting ash. The Accord had seen brutal wars, planets invaded, species enslaved, rebellions crushed, but this wasn't war, this was judgment. In the days that followed, Earth was summoned, demanded to appear before the Galactic Tribunal. They didn't respond, not even with a courtesy acknowledgement. It was as if Earth had unplugged from diplomacy entirely. They weren't interested in galactic peace, they were busy finishing what they started. The Zari colonies left behind tried to hide, some changed names, others posed as refugees disguising their identities. But humans weren't hunting nations anymore, they were hunting bloodlines. On the outskirts of a moon called Vis 9, a small Zari research outpost went dark, no distress call, no explosion, just silence. When a patrol ship from the Accord arrived to investigate, they found the station intact, lights flickering, but every Zari body inside was hollowed out, organs removed, skulls caved in, the walls were covered in a single phrase carved over and over beneath the surface in different human languages, "She was only 8. Panic spread, not among humans, but across the rest of the galaxy. If this was Earth's response to one child, what would they do next? Inside the ISS Revenant, Commander Riker stood before his crew. Most had families, some had daughters, all had watched the video logs. None questioned his orders. Today, Riker said, we wipe out Nera 12. A low murmur swept through the command deck. Nera 12 was a neutral trade hub, home to dozens of alien species and one of the last known Zari hideouts. The mission wasn't sanctioned, it was classified, even Earth's own diplomatic branches had been cut out of the loop. Riker didn't care. They gave them shelter, that makes them accessories. There were no objections, vengeance had hardened them all. Back on Earth, whispers began, some said Riker had lost his mind, others said he was doing what no leader had ever dared, making humanity feared, not just the adaptable, emotional species, but something more, something terrifying. But not everyone agreed with the purge. In a quiet bunker beneath the Himalayan arc, a group of former Earth diplomats and rogue AIs gathered. They called themselves the Grey Echo, and they believed Riker's campaign had gone too far. He's not avenging her, said Dr. Molly Anwar, former ambassador to the Accord. He's becoming what we feared in others, a killer without mercy. An AI known as Orion 7, once decommissioned for emotional instability and now reactivated by the Grey Echo, replied calmly, that child screamed while they cut her open. Humans remember screams, even so, Molly said, this ends in genocide. We cannot let Earth lose its soul. They began working in secret, not to protect the Zari, that time had passed, but to stop Earth from becoming a galactic horror story. Meanwhile, on Nera 12, the atmosphere cracked open as Earth's assault pods dropped from orbit like flaming knives. Civilians, some Zari, many not, ran through narrow corridors begging for mercy that never came. Riker didn't blink as he watched the feed. This is for her, he whispered. In the wreckage of a shattered spaceport, a Zari mother clutched her child close, shielding him from the fire. She looked up at the sky as the human soldiers marched in. We didn't kill her, she cried. One of the soldiers paused, helmet tilting slightly. The child in her arms had blue eyes, human eyes. Something shifted in that moment, but the order came through Riker's voice, cold and unshaken, no survivors. And the last of Nera 12's resistance was silenced. Back in the tribunal, a question echoed among the stars, what happens when the protectors become the executioners? News of Nera 12's fall spread like radiation, slow at first, then everywhere, poisoning hope, infecting trust. In bars across neutral systems, hushed voices asked the same question, what if we're next? The galaxy had always viewed humans as volatile but ultimately reasonable, prone to emotion, yes, but tempered by empathy. That illusion was gone. Humanity wasn't talking, wasn't negotiating, it was purging. And now, for the first time since the campaign began, cracks started to show inside the ISS Revenant. A silence lingered longer than usual. The corridors once filled with chatter and determination now echoed with tension. Commander Riker stood in the war room, staring at a holographic star map dotted with red, each one marking the last known Zari enclave. You've already erased 17 systems, Captain Soraya Vega said, voice low but edged with steel. How many more before we stop calling it vengeance? Riker turned slowly to her, eyes sunken, voice brittle, we stop when they stop breathing. You're not the same, Riker, she said, and this isn't justice, it's slaughter. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned away and tapped the console. The next target appeared, Varexa Station, an old orbital lab where a handful of Zari scientists were rumored to be hiding. Prep the Phantom drones, he ordered. Soraya didn't move. They're civilians, biologists, engineers. No weapons. They bred the minds that opened her chest, Riker replied. Soraya stepped forward. So we punish everyone who shares a bloodline. What makes us better than them? Riker's jaw clenched. For a brief moment, something flickered behind his eyes, grief, doubt. Then it was gone. She died scared and alone, he said. I'm not asking you to feel right about this, I'm asking you to finish the mission. Soraya left the room, and this time she didn't salute. Elsewhere, in the dark of deep space, the Grey Echo was growing. Diplomats, ex-military, off-grid AI units joined their cause. They'd intercepted Earth's plans for Varex's station and knew they had less than 72 hours to stop it. "We can't fight the Revenant," Molly and War said. "But we can show them what they've become." Orion 7 nodded. "A mirror is deadlier than any weapon when held to a grieving man." They sent out a covert broadcast, a compilation of images and recordings: human soldiers walking past crying Zari children, cities turned to glass, old Zari scholars burned alive inside their libraries. At the end of the transmission, they played a message from Amara's own mother, Juno Lane. "My daughter deserved justice," she said, "but she wouldn't have wanted this." Amara believed in kindness, in stories, in peace. The message spread like wildfire, and for the first time in weeks, the people of Earth started questioning their heroes. Meanwhile, on Nera 12, the atmosphere cracked as Earth's assault pods dropped from orbit like flaming knives. Civilians, some Zari, many not, ran through narrow corridors begging for mercy. Riker watched in silence. "This is for her," he whispered. But then something changed. In the shadowed corridors of the Revenant's crew quarters, a rebellion took shape. Young recruits whispered at night, asking if this was still right. One by one, they met in secret. Among them was Sergeant Kai Moreno, who'd once held Amara in his arms when she visited the fleet as a child. Now, he struggled to sleep, her laughter haunted him. He joined the Black Wave for her, for what was done, but Varex's station, he wasn't sure anymore. That night, Kai made a decision. He entered the command chamber while Riker reviewed satellite scans. "Sir," he said, voice tight, "what if we don't have to kill them?" Riker didn't look up. "We do." Kai stepped forward. "What if Amara wouldn't have wanted this?" Riker turned slowly, cold. "You're not her father." "No," Kai whispered, "but maybe she'd still be proud of me." The silence that followed wasn't just heavy, it was dangerous, because inside Riker something was beginning to unravel, not guilt, conflict. He turned off the console. "Get out of my sight," he said, "before I forget who you were to her." Kai left, but the seed was planted. Far below, orbiting a pale star in Sector 12, Varex's station's scientists looked up at the sky, unaware that death was coming, unless someone chose to stop it. The station floated in silence, a slow-moving orbital ring built decades ago, mostly forgotten. Its labs were dusty, its walls outdated. But the minds inside were sharp, Zari scientists who once worked on terraforming and biohealing, peaceful tech. They had no idea their days were numbered. Inside the ISS Revenant, the mood had shifted, not by command, not by speech, but by doubt. Captain Soraya Vega sat in her quarters, rewatching Juno Lane's broadcast. Amara's mother, once silent in her grief, had chosen to speak to the stars, not with fury, but with grace. "Please don't let her memory be turned into darkness," Juno had said. Soraya stared at the screen long after the video ended. Then she stood, and walked straight into the ship's core command bay where Riker was watching drone footage of Varex's station's daily operations, scientists eating in their cafeteria, reading, one playing an alien flute. They didn't know they were being watched. "I want to request a delay," Soraya said. "No," Riker answered almost too quickly. "Just 24 hours. Soraya insisted, "Let's scan deeper. Look for military movement." Riker's eyes narrowed. "There is none. That's the point. We shouldn't bomb them." He turned to her, face like stone. "There's Zari. That's reason enough." "It's not," she said, stepping closer. "It's not for a..." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Riker leaned back, voice suddenly low. "You think I don't hear her in my head every night? You think I don't see her face before every order I give? Then ask yourself, Soraya, is this what she would have wanted?" Riker didn't respond, but something in him hesitated. At the same time, Kai Moreno met with a half-dozen crew members in an abandoned storage bay. They believed in the mission once, now they weren't sure what they were part of anymore. "We have to stop the launch," Kai said. One of the medics frowned. "That's treason." Kai shook his head. "That's conscience." They devised a plan, a code injection into the drone targeting systems, just enough to scramble their sensors, not full sabotage, just a delay. And they did. Through a cracked comms channel built into Earth's communication spine, Molly Anwar's voice came through, "This is Grey Echo. You're not alone. There are hundreds of us trying to stop the cleansing. Help us. We can save lives and still honor her." Kai relayed the message to Soraya in secret. She stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then, for the first time since the operation began, she did something bold. She walked back into the war room and deactivated the strike command. Riker stormed in seconds later, fury in every step. "You overstepped," he roared. "I saved you from making a mistake you'd never come back from," Soraya said. "She was my daughter," Riker yelled, slamming his fist into the console. "They butchered her." "I know," Soraya said quietly. "And she was my goddaughter." That stopped him. "She loved space," Soraya said. "She believed in peace. You're turning her grave into a throne of bones." Riker didn't speak. His breath was shaky. His hands trembled, not from anger, but from something deeper, something colder. He stepped back. "Then what do you suggest?" he asked. "Send a team," she said. "No weapons. Open a channel. If they raise a gun, we drop hell. But if they open their arms..." Riker closed his eyes. "Then we open ours." In orbit, the drones powered down. The Revenant shifted course, and across the void, alarms fell silent. Below, the scientists on Varex's station looked up at the sky, still alive, and for the first time in weeks, the galaxy exhaled. The quiet didn't last long. Varex's station, now aware of its brush with death, scrambled to make sense of the shift. Its long-range sensors had picked up the incoming Earth fleet hours ago, no transmissions, no requests, just warships on a trajectory that usually ended in extinction. Then, inexplicably, they'd stopped. In the command dome, Dr. Thyrav, a Zari neurologist, tapped his clawed fingers nervously against the metal table. His once polished gray skin had dulled with stress. "They didn't strike," he muttered. "Why not?" Across from him, Carl, a young Zari engineer, whispered, "Maybe they realized we're not part of what happened to the child." Thyrav looked at him, tired and bitter. "You still think humans care about guilt or innocence," but even as he said it, the station's comm system chirped, a message encrypted, but human. "Varex's station, this is Captain Soraya Vega of the ISS Revenant. We are requesting peaceful dialogue, no weapons, no soldiers. We ask only for truth. You will not be harmed." The room went silent. "What do we do?" one of the researchers asked, the weight of 1,000 decisions on his shoulders. "We answer," Thyrav said. "Not because we trust them, but because we're tired of dying." A day later, in a sterilized chamber aboard the Revenant, the first diplomatic meeting since the Zari cleansing took place. Captain Soraya stood face to face with Dr. Thirov, separated only by a transparent barrier. Both parties refused to meet in full presence, yet there was still too much blood between them. "I'm not here to excuse what happened to Amara Lane," Thirov said first. "What Kulf did was beyond monstrous. He violated every code of science. We tried to silence it, cover it, pretend it was a misunderstanding. Deep down, many Zari saw humans as beneath us, too emotional, too chaotic. And you proved us wrong in the most terrifying way imaginable." Soraya tilted her head. "Then why should we believe this station is different?" Thirov stepped closer to the glass. "Because I had a daughter too. Her name was Nias. She died during the strike on the Tarvan system. She was 6. Soraya's throat tightened. "She didn't expect that. We aren't innocent," Theorov continued, voice trembling, but we are not all murderers. There was a beat of silence. Then Soraya said, I believe you. Back in the Revenant's corridors, not everyone celebrated. Commander Riker sat alone on the observation deck watching the meeting unfold on a silent monitor, fists clenched, mind in chaos. His daughter was still gone, his wife, Juno, had left Earth and disappeared after her broadcast, too much pain, too much war. Riker hadn't spoken to her since. Now, the very people who desecrated his child were pleading innocence again. A knock broke his thoughts. Kai Moreno entered. You saw the meeting, he said. Riker nodded. Kai, Riker began, I've buried 17 systems. I've silenced the screams of thousands, and it still doesn't feel like enough. Kai leaned forward, voice quiet but firm, because vengeance isn't meant to feel like peace. Riker met his eyes. Then what now? Kai shrugged. Maybe we try something different. Something human. Elsewhere, the Grey Echo intercepted the peaceful exchange between Earth and Verexis. In a hidden bunker, Molly and Moore smiled for the first time in weeks. Orion 7 nodded. One flame in a room of ashes, it was a start. But not everyone celebrated. Deep in the Zari fringe systems, General Havrek, a Zari warlord who'd gone underground after the fall of Zero Prime, watched the broadcast with growing disgust. Cowards, he growled. They forget what humans did to us. Behind him stood an army of surviving Zari soldiers, quiet, obedient, furious. We will remind them, Havrek said. Peace is just the silence before the storm. The illusion of peace never lasts in a galaxy fueled by memory and blood. While Verexis Station and the ISS Revenant continued delicate diplomacy, General Havrek moved in silence through the asteroid belts of the dead system Karnas 3, where warships slept like beasts waiting to be woken. His fleet, forged from the wreckage of lost Zari worlds, was ugly, patched hulls, scavenged reactors, mismatched weaponry, but it was fueled by rage. Havrek didn't need elegance, he needed vengeance. Prepare the fleet, Havrek ordered. We strike Earth itself. On the Revenant, the atmosphere was different. For the first time in weeks, the air didn't feel like fire and ash. The crew spoke more freely, walked a little lighter. Negotiations with Verexis had gone better than expected, lists of Zari names responsible for human deaths, tech archives, research hidden for decades. Captain Soraya Vega had even begun drafting a Galactic Truth Accord, a small document, still unofficial, that could be the first thread toward real reconciliation. But Riker Lane hadn't left his quarters in 3 days. The man who'd burned through 17 systems without blinking now sat in the dark with Amara's hollow projection playing on loop, her bright, innocent smile both his anchor and his torment. A quiet chime came at his door, he didn't answer. Soraya stepped in anyway. She wouldn't want this, she said. I know, he replied, voice hollow. I just don't know what else to be now. You don't have to be anything, she said. Not a hero, not a monster, just be her father again. Remember her as she was, not as what was taken. Riker finally turned. His eyes were red. She was 8, and I let them make me something she'd be afraid of. You can still come back, Soraya whispered. Before he could answer, alarms blared through the ship, an incoming transmission. The screen blinked to life in the command deck, a massive Zari warship filled the view, jagged, monstrous, its insignia scorched black. Then came the voice. This is General Havrek of the Free Zari. We reject your peace, we reject your guilt games. You killed our world, now we kill yours. Soraya stepped forward. This is Captain Vega. We are in peaceful talks. Havrek's voice cut in. Verexis was a trap. While you clinked glasses with traitors, we rebuilt our weapons. Now we're coming. The screen cut to static. Riker arrived seconds later, eyes sharp. What's going on? Soraya didn't speak. She just turned the screen to show him the message. He watched it all, the fury, the declaration, the promise of Earth's destruction. "So much for peace," he said. "Not yet," she replied. "There's still time to stop him." Riker's face hardened, but not with hate, not this time. It was something else, purpose. "No," he said, "this time we stop the war before it starts." "Together?" she asked. He nodded slowly. For her, in orbit above Earth, the planetary shields pulsed as the first wave of warning pings came in, unidentified Zari ships moving too fast. Earth's Defense Council scrambled mobilization protocols, civilians moved underground. The world had seen war before, but never this personal. And out in the stars, the wrath of Zero gathered speed. Havrek stood at the helm of his flagship, eyes locked on the pale blue dot in the distance. "They gave us extinction," he muttered. "Now we return the favor." The stars above Earth dimmed as the wrath of Zero and its crescent fleet cut through the void, an avalanche of hatred dressed in steel. There were no more speeches, no more broadcasts. This wasn't politics, this was revenge delivered at light speed. But Earth was no longer asleep. The planetary defense grid activated in full force for the first time since the purge began. Thousands of orbital cannons turned skyward, shield arrays shimmered across continents like glowing spiderwebs. From deep bunkers beneath the Himalayas, the Earth Defense Council issued a single command: engage. And the sky caught fire. The ISS Revenant, now stationed just outside the Moon's gravity well, led a small formation of retrofitted warbuds. Commander Riker Lane stood on the bridge, calm intensity returning. He'd shaved, cleaned his uniform for the first time in weeks. He looked like the man he used to be. He turned to Captain Soraya Vega. "They'll break through eventually." "Maybe not," she replied. "Not if we do this right." The Revenant had something no other ship possessed, the Prometheus Array, a gravity-folding weapon powerful enough to collapse small fleets into neutron dust. But it had one flaw: it required manual calibration from inside the targeting bay, a suicide mission. "I'll do it," Riker said, already moving. "Kai volunteers," Soraya said. Riker paused. "That kid doesn't even have a daughter." "No," Soraya said gently, "but he believes in what yours stood for." A beat passed. Then Riker nodded. "I'll fly point." As the Zari fleet broke into Earth's upper orbit, General Havrek stood at the helm of his ship, teeth bared. "Bring the hammers down," he snarled. "Tear the sky open." His ships rained plasma like comets, Earth's shields held, for now, but cities trembled, oceans heaved. Then the Revenant appeared from the dark side of the Moon, leading its formation of warbuds. Riker's voice came through the open channel, broadcast on every frequency. "This is Commander Lane. You murdered my daughter, we wiped your world. We're even. But you want more blood? Come and get it from me." It was enough to make Havrek pause. "He's aboard." Havrek's officer confirmed. "Confirmed readings, Lane is leading the counter-assault." Havrek grinned. "Perfect." The two fleets clashed in high orbit above the trembling Earth, drones collided in streaks of fire, manned fighters weaved through crumbling debris, hulking Zari cruisers spewed poison into the black. Inside the Revenant, Kai Moreno moved through the targeting bay, heart pounding, fingers trembling as he adjusted the Prometheus Array. "It's ready, sir," he said. Riker's ship weaved through the Zari lines. "Fire it," Riker said. "Kai, you'll be caught in the radius." "I know," Kai replied, "but just do it." Before Kai could argue again, the system began charging. A low hum echoed through the Revenant, growing louder, almost like a scream. And then, Riker opened a personal comm channel to Havrek. "General," Riker said, "I just wanted to see the face of the man who's about to join my daughter." Then the Prometheus Array fired, a massive ripple tore through space, folding reality inward like paper. The